Hey there, Hofstra fans, and welcome inside the WB Mason Coaches Report on GoHofstra.com. I'm Julian Coulter, joined by the head coach of the Hofstra Pride Wrestling team, Rob Anspach. Coach, how's it going today?
Good.
Well, last show of the season for you and I. We'll start with talking a little bit about the national tournament, and then we'll briefly touch on next season and what your expectations are for next year. So you guys had 4 qualifiers for the national tournament. You had 2 guys that were able to go to that second day, but just fell short of All-American qualification and being an All-American this year. So overall, what were your thoughts on how the tournament shaped out?
It's an unbelievable tournament. Every year you go out there and you see people get knocked off that you thought, well, this guy, he's a can't-miss All-American and things like that. So it's just a great tournament to be at and to see the upsets and everything like that. I thought the guys wrestled really well. I know none of them really reached what they went out there for, and as a coaching staff, that's a tough pill to swallow. But I was happy with the way they competed. They represented the university and themselves and the staff very well. So, I look at that and I go, you know what, they did a good job. Luke Veit, Joe Booth, they were both 1 point away from being All-Americans, and it's tough to end your career that close and not being able to reach, what your goals were. But that's the way it works sometimes.
Now, as far as individual wrestlers go, do you think that a majority of the guys, obviously, as far as Veit and Booth go, probably their goal was to be an All-American, but for a guy like Cody Rhodes, who qualifies for the first time, do you think his national tournament allows him to move on to next year?
I think it helps in some ways. I hope that wasn't his goal to go out there and just be, hey, I'm out here. That's not what we stress as a staff, and it's sure as heck not what we want our guys thinking, like, okay, I made it. Not to say that doesn't happen. You see it all the time. You see it from other programs as well. But I don't think that was his situation. He went out there, and the reason I say that is, his first match he gets cradled. He gives up a bunch of back points. He's losing the match, and it's very easy if you have that type of mindset. Just, hey, you know what? I got caught. It's over. He didn't do that. He broke the cradle. Ended up coming back with the win. He falls back into the wrestlebacks. He has the number 2 seed who got upset first round, and you're kind of like, wow, that you don't see that coming. And and I watched the way he competed, and he really was right there with them. He was actually all over the kid's legs as the match was going on. He gets the last takedown against a kid who's known for wearing his opponents out. And it was really the first time I had seen Cody be able to do that. So it was a sign to me that, he's still recovering from his injury. He's still getting healthier. He's starting to believe in himself more and more that he can wrestle with the best guys in the country and not just do it for the first period, but do it for all 7 minutes of the match. And if we can continue working on that throughout the spring, throughout the summer, we're really going to look for him to be a possible title contender next year because of his ability to pin people and turn people on top.
Now let's talk about, obviously, the wrap-up on this year. You lose a lot of guys. Senior-wise, you lose Jamie Franco. You lose Luke Veit, guys that made the NCAA tournament the past couple of years. And you lose Joe Booth, who, even though he only had 1 year of eligibility this year as a graduate student, he was fantastic at the 165. So what are you losing with that?
Yeah, those guys, combined, probably, I think Joe had 30-some wins, and Luke was probably 30 wins, and Jamie 24. So, quick math, there's 80 wins we got to make up somewhere in the season. And they won a majority of the matches. And those were guys that, you could count on them to win, and that's great. But it was also the way they went about their business as far as being role models to the younger guys and leaders in the wrestling room. So, the hope is that they did such a good job that it's going to carry on to the next group coming in. We're going to need Cody to step up and be that role model. He's the only returning national qualifier. We have some good young guys ready to step in there. I think they're hungry. I think they're ready to go. But time will tell. They need a good summer. They need a good spring. They need a good summer. This is the first year a lot of these guys have been with us. You look at Kyle Krasavage, redshirt this year. Maverick Passaro, first year with us, redshirting. We got some good guys coming in. Nick Turdick needs to get back in the lineup. We had Jelani Calendar. We got a lot of guys. We got a lot of pieces there. We just got to make sure they fit the proper way. We got to make sure they stay focused here in the spring and continue to improve in wrestling and mature as far as their goals and not just accepting what people tell them, like, oh, you know, you're at this university, or you're here, you know, you got to be in the Big Ten, or you got to be in the Big 12, and you know, you hear that a lot with our sport, and it's just not true. Every year we go out to the national tournament, you see guys from the Citadel knocking people off. You see guys from Edinburgh had 3 All-Americans. You know, and that's a Division II school in every other program besides wrestling. So if they're capable of doing it, we're capable of doing it. We just got to have the buy-in from each of these guys, and as a staff, we got to make sure we're out there doing the best we can, recruiting with getting guys that have like minds like we do, who don't care if you're from the Big 10 or the Big 12, because they're winning, and that's the only thing they care about. They want to come in and they're going to have goals to be national champions, and they're not going to let anybody stop them from doing it.
Now, from your own personal standpoint as coach, what's the toughest part of a turnover like this when you lose so many wins?
Yeah, I think, you know, one is just making sure that we keep our thumb on these guys here in the spring right now. Start talking to certain people about taking that leadership role and becoming the voice of the program and stuff like that. Again, we've lost 3 of our leaders. I know Joe was here for 1 year, but he stepped right into that leadership role, being a 6-year guy, being a 3-time national qualifier. He stepped right into a leadership role. And, you know, we're going to have to watch and make sure that the team's being looked after, and start picking out some guys that are doing the right things and making sure our younger guys kind of attach to them and progress the way we want them to.
No, obviously, you mentioned some of the names there, but going into next season, if you look at the weight classes, where do you think the biggest strength will be for the team? Obviously, the lower weight classes these past couple of seasons were really the strength with guys like Vite and Jamie Franco. Next year, where do you hone in? Is it still those first 3?
Yeah, I think it is. You know, we have some good young guys coming in. Travis Pissarro just won a New York State Championship, and he's already signed his letter of intent with us, so he's going to come in there and he's going to challenge right away at 125 pounds to wrestle right out the gates. You know, we're going to have Maverick Pissarro and Kyle Krasavage going in there for 133, both of them quality kids, won a lot of matches in open tournaments. 41 looks to be Hudson, moving up a weight class, and we all know he's a dynamic wrestler. Cody, 20-some wins this year. We expect that to increase. So those first 4 weights, we're feeling pretty confident. You know, Mike Hughes at heavyweight, I saw a lot of progression from him, and I expect him to continue. The one thing, he's got a great work ethic, and we expect him to make a huge jump now that we're going to have him here for a whole summer, and he's going to be completely committed, and he has a year of Division I wrestling under his belt. Frank Afrani made some huge strides. So, you know, I think, again, we're going to rely heavily on our lighter weights, but not the way we had to this year. I think we'll be all right up top. We need to still, you know, get one more kid in from a recruiting standpoint. If we get him, I'm feeling pretty good about where this team could end up next year.
Obviously, we'll see where the schedule shapes up, but it's something that you preach each and every year, is the ability during the regular season to compete on a national stage. What do you think needs to happen to take that step and be able to beat some of these programs now that you have that second year in the IWA?
Yeah, I think, you know, we need to continue just doing what we're doing. You know, make sure we're scheduling the right teams, you know, the Oklahomas and the Big Ten schools, and making sure we're getting out to Las Vegas to see a lot of the Pac-10 and some of those other schools. And then just really, you know, being very selective about who we're wrestling and where we're wrestling, make sure our guys are getting the most out of each and every date. You know, we get 16 dates, and we got to make sure each one of them counts. One, for a confidence standpoint, 2, for making sure that we're getting challenged the necessary way, so we know what we're going to be up against at the national tournament and in the EIWAs.
And finally, Coach, what are your final thoughts on the 2013-14 season?
I was, you know, disappointed we didn't have any All-Americans. You know, it's tough to leave a year when you put a lot of time, and knowing how much time and effort the guys put in, especially some of our seniors, you know, that did everything right. It's tough to leave that tournament without anything, any kind of hardware to show for it. But, you know, I look at the improvements some of our guys made, and so we're going to build off of that. You know, we're not going to look at the negative and say, oh, hey, you know, we're in a tailspin here, what's going on? And say, no, we got some things that we can hang our hat on, and guys like Frank Afrani doing what he did at the EIWAs, and Cody Rhodes and Mike Hughes, and some of the guys that are redshirt, and watching the way they're working out, and just kind of get those guys on board with the belief system, and now really turn our focus on those guys and say, okay, you were redshirting last year, but now it's time to step up and shine. So overall, what I liked was I really feel we got better as a team throughout the year. We were definitely better in March than we were in November, and if we can continue to do that throughout the next year, we're going to be a very good team come next March.
Coach, thanks so much for the time, and thanks for this season. Remember, Hofstra fans, you can tune into the WB Mason Coaches Report each and every week here on GoHofstra.com.